3, 2. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to let me repeat, the Rock and Roll Podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy, Mark.
Frank. Hello, listener.
All right. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now Amazon Music Podcasts.
That's right. We release new episodes every Friday, so you can get your weekend started with a big old bingo, boom of our rock and roll nonsense.
That's right. For any of those new listeners out there, this is a podcast from Mark and I. Recommend albums to each other. We review them. Plus, we have a wide variety of musical discussions, like our Spotlight series, where we dig into a band's catalog and we see what comes out on the other side.
Or in our Verse series, where we'll pit two albums or bands against each other and make them duke it out for total stereo domination. I'm good. I'm okay.
Nice. I was like, you're cutting a promo from The Ultimate Warrior back in the 90s or something.
There you go.
Be sure to check us out on Instagram and our Facebook group. We like to drop additional content that will leave you wanting more of our musical goodness and, of course, Mark's random nonsense. And if you got a good record you want us to check out, drop a comment wherever you find us. While you're at it, subscribe, give us a rating, a review. So I say this as I always do, and Mark says it to me. Mark, how are you, my man?
Frankie, I'm good, brother. Ready to eat my body weight in turkey. If you're listening to this the day it came out, I just ate my body weight in turkey. Plus, we've got a great show in store for you, our darling listeners.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we do, brother. So leading up to a very special 49th and 50th episode. Yes. However, the lead up, is going to be focused on the debut album of a band that's intertwined with our subjects for the 49th and 50th episode. So we're going to be talking about and looking at the first and self-titled record from Foo Fighters. So yes, you could probably guess what episodes will be after this. We've seen Foo Fighters actually live before. We're at the same show, and it was very entertaining and energetic. Yeah, they didn't play much from the self-titled album, but we felt it was one that we should look back, right, Mark, and see how it aged.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this last week. That when I was a young teen, I fell in love with this record, or actually, it was the cassette. It's always been my favorite album of theirs, and I think it still is to this date. But it's been a long time since I've actively listen to this record, short of preparing for the episode tonight. So it was really interesting to dive back in and see what it was that 13-year-old Mark on his bicycle was so into.
Yes. I would love to meet 13-year-old Mark on his bicycle, by the way.
So weird. So I spent the week and I did a complete dive into the entirety of the Foo Fighters catalog. I've been neck deep in the Foo, Frank.
Wow. In the Foo. Amazing. So before we then get to the Foo, let's do a top list.
For sure.
So this Foo Fighters album, it came out in 95. So let's focus on that year. And I'll take my top 10 albums of 95. And sure. Mark, why don't you take your top 10 songs of 95? Ooh. And we go back and forth. How does that sound?
That sounds lovely.
Lovely. All right. So you want me to kick us off?
You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off? You
sure? All right, so
now, because Frank skipped this. Neither one of us put Smashing Pumpkins, that hunk of garbage, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Look, I know that there's 3 or 4 singles on that double LP, double CD, but if you take those 3 or 4 songs off that CD, it's completely forgettable. It is a piece of shit album. The Smashing Pumpkins suck. I get it. You liked 1 or 2 of their songs. The rest of it sucks.
Yeah. Maybe so I was going to say that. I was going to say for just so everyone wants to know, if this was Mark's list, I could tell you he wouldn't have Melancholy and Infinite Sadness on there. So maybe we'll dedicate an episode and get Mark really revved up one time. I know.
All right.
I know. All right, kicking us off. Here we go. In no particular order. This is, remember, I'm doing albums. Mark's doing songs. So the first album for me is No Use for a Name, Leche con Carne. I love No Use for a Name, and I miss Tony Sly's music more and more with each year that he's been gone. Leche had some great tunes like Justified, Black Eyes, Soulmate, Straight from the Jacket, and Exit. It's really the archetype of a mid 90s fat record release. So No Use for a Name, Leche con Carne.
Yeah, my first, mine are kind of in order, but not particularly. Number 10 for me, 1995, Garbage released I'm Only Happy When It Rains from their self-titled album. I remember seeing the video for this and being so blown away by the band singing about being sad and how deeply I connected with it. Plus, it's just a weird-ass video. I think a lot of people would have expected me to put Stupid Girl
Stupid
here.
Girl.
But I really like this song better. There's so much more musically going on with I'm Only Happy in the Rain, When It Rains, excuse me. It's just the cooler song to me. I know it didn't get as much love,
Right.
but let's say in the mid-90s, we loved shaming women. So,
And your good tie-in to what's to come for our episodes because Butch Vig of Garbage produced Nevermind. So, you yeah, absolutely. He produced a lot of that. So, good tie-in there. My next one is Face to Face with their album Big Choice. So, a band that's on a similar level for me, like No Use for a Name. I've always found Face to Face to have great replay value, even though their music, I would say, wasn't groundbreaking. And Mark does have Lemonheads, just so everyone knows. Pink Lemonade.
I'm just enjoying them.
25 cents, right?
Sorry.
So again, Face to Face's music wasn't groundbreaking, but to me it was consistent. And Big Choice is another consistent record with fun tunes like A-OK, It's Not Over, and Promises. And it also had some major label backing from A&M. So Face to Face with Big Choice.
Excellent. So for me, this is kind of my number 9 pick, kind of whatever. Shimmy, Shimmy, Ya. That's right. Talking about Old Dirty Bastard.
ODB.
Masterpiece from his first solo release, encompassing everything that makes him truly Big Baby Jesus. You couldn't talk about 95 without giving credit to where it's due to Old Dirty Bastard.
And there you go, Old DB. So number 3, Silverchair and Frog Stomp. And this could be a surprise here. This is the 15-year-old version of me putting this on the list. So let me enter the room as 15-year-old Frank, okay?
Sure. You get that much hair hidden back there?
On my head, yeah. Hey, Mark, how's it going? It's Frank.
Hey, Frank, what's going on, bud?
Not much. So there's this cool record. It's from Silverchair, Frog Stomp.
Those Australian anorexic kids, right?
Right, absolutely. Nice. So yeah, I was 15 when this record came out, and wow, if I used to envision of being a 15-year-old rock star because I was the same age as they were, right? So I was like, oh, this is freaking awesome. I really dug the tracks Israel Sun, Tomorrow, Pure Massacre, Suicidal Dream. I thought they were really cool and riffy. I used to sit and listen to the tape nonstop from front to back. Daniel Johns, I think, found some great tone with his guitars and produced some cool riffs. It's a shame that he abandoned that for Janet Jackson style music. But you know what? This album is pretty cool. 15-year-old band or 15-year-olds in this band playing. So yeah, that was mine. Silverchair, Frog Stomp.
Excellent. My next choice is none other than White Zombie's More Human Than Human. I never realized how long the name of the album was. It's Astro Creep, 2000 Songs of Love, Destruction, and Other Synthetic Delusions of the Electric Head.
Wow.
Yeah, I love how Rob Zombie found a way to make industrial metal and B-horror movies collide into just like such a fun and funky time. Just really cool, very enigmatic of what the mid-90s sounded like as metal and industrial really verged into each other. The album as a whole is pretty cool, but that song in particular is the highlight. It's just got that drive. It's just a cool song. To me.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. And I don't know why it didn't make my list. I don't know. Sorry. Next, we have two episodes on these. I'm not going to speak long on them, but Fugazi, Red Medicine, It's my all-time favorite Fugazi album. You can refer back to our two-part exhausting episodes where me and Mark
Mhm.
went into therapy, spotlighting the band for more information. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, definitely check out that episode in our archive wherever you find us. For me, my next pick is No Doubt and the song Sunday Morning.
Oh,
Their
yes.
debut album, Tragic Kingdom, back when they were a ska band and they did it so well. This was probably my favorite single release from the album. It helped to introduce me to ska in a form I hadn't really heard before, with a
Yeah.
woman singing. I know that there were plenty more out there before Gwen Stefani, but at 13, it was the first time I had heard it, and it blew my mind, and I was just super into it. And Sunday Morning's just such a cool track, and it's so much cooler than the other singles off that record.
Yeah, that's a good song. My wife would be happy that you had that in there because she's a big, no doubt, Gwen Stefani fan. In fact, after she saw her live a couple years back, I tweeted her saying, "Hey, listen, my wife really had a great time. Thank you." She tweeted back, and then also when she released her Christmas album a couple years back, my wife sends her a picture on Twitter again of the girls dancing to it, and she replied back also. So
Oh,
she's a legit person and an Italian like me. So there you go. So the next one is the 311 album, self-titled 311. I think their first two are absolutely flawless music and grassroots. I love it. And the self-titled has some gems. I mean, you have Down, which made them really big, all mixed up, Hive, Misdirected Hostility. There's like 5 to 7 genres going on here all at once. It's a great album, and I really dig it. So that's mine, Mark. 311, 311.
well, I'm catching up to you a little bit here. My next track is Silverchair's Tomorrow off Rock Stomp.
There you go.
Another CD that I played the hell out of, either walking or riding my bike home from school. The song was just cool as shit, and it really rocked. It was,
Yeah.
they did a great job of taking the grunge movement that was essentially starting to end and mixing it with the 90s alt that was happening. And really, for these 15-year-old kids, like Frank said, they've really found a way to make a really smart and interesting record. So
Yeah.
definitely check out Tomorrow. I mean, just such a great song.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Mhm.
Next, again, much like the Fugazi album I mentioned, we have a spotlight episode on the following band, Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. You'll hear our thoughts on this incredible album. It's nothing short but incredible. It's amazing. So, Rancid and Out Come the Wolves.
Yeah. This next song, you could not have made it through the 90s without hearing. It's Everclear's Santa Monica.
Wow.
Yeah, man, this thing was all over the radio. It had those jangly-ish guitars, which just kind of like just kind of hint of fuzz, and then like it just kicked perfectly into that distortion chorus, and the hook in it just pulls you in every time. It's kind of that perfect 90s alt song. Like
Yeah.
it really just felt that like define that genre.
Yeah. Well, they actually, what's interesting with them is around that time, because there's another song on that record called Heroin Girl, which I really dug. Like there was a little bit of an edge, and then by like the next album, it went. That was it. So that song in particular, it captures that moment in time.
Yeah.
Next is another self-titled record. It's from Elliott Smith. So Elliott Smith's self-titled record. Elliott Smith, such a tortured soul he was, and Elliott made some, I mean, beautifully sad songs. The second album I feel is phenomenal with tracks like Needle in the Hay, Southern Belle, Christian Brothers, Single File, and Coming Up Roses. Another artist I just miss very dearly, Elliott Smith.
This my next song is from Elliott Smith off the Elliott Smith album. It's called Elliott Smith. No, I'm just kidding. My next song
He's
uh,
scally.
is from Folk Implosion, Natural One.
Natural One.
That's right, from their album Kids, which for some reason is not on Spotify. Another one of those mid 90s alt gems that is intentionally weird, but in like a fun way. Plus the chorus is super catchy and it just gets stuck in your head. And I think this is a little bit where a lot of the rock kids started getting into like techno and dance music, because it just had that big like
Yeah.
rave-esque energy to it.
Big sound.
It was a
Yeah.
cool song. It was a really interesting sound for the band. It's just a cool one. If you're like, I need to listen to something 90s, find fucking natural one on YouTube because it's not on Spotify, and just have a good time with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Next is Deftones' Adrenaline, their first album. So we covered the second album in an episode, Around the Fur, on a previous episode, but this is the first one, and I feel it's still pretty awesome. I know there's that stigma of new metal, and we outlined it, how it's different from all the other stuff. I mean, we've beaten that, like a dead horse for sure. But this album is where it started for the band. It has some great raw tracks on here. Really showcases a lot of their talent. So Deftones' Adrenaline.
Nice. So, my number 3 track, yeah, 8-3, however we're counting this, is again, I'm catching up to Frank here. 311 Down.
There you go.
A personal favorite of our co-host here, Mr. Frankie D. You can't understate how this song and band would shape the sound of music to come for the rest of the 90s and into the early aughts. You just credited the Deftones for some new metal stuff, but I think 311 more broadly influenced maybe some of the lighter end of it.
Yeah.
Because they definitely had that beachy, surfy sound, but they also got heavy. Clearly you can draw a straight line from 311 to Incubus, who were absolutely goddamn huge. So, yeah, I mean, and of course, in my opinion, this is the way cooler version of what Limp Bizkit has been trying to rip off their entire career.
Love it. Next, and this is a good one. So Green Day Insomniac. So Mark, we were talking about the record earlier, of course, during the day, but this is my favorite Green Day album. It's punk, it's pissed off. They didn't make another Dookie, and they showed the world that they could be a punk band. Geek Stink Breath, Brain Stew, Jaded, Brat, Stuck With Me. They captured this classic Green Day sound and some at this time. So Green Day Insomniac, man, it's such a good record.
Yeah, my number 2, number 9, however we're counting this thing, is Geek Stink Breath. I mean,
love it.
Green Day is pissed off after Dookie, and it's got my full attention. Geek Stink Breath is a perfect example of how they took the signature pop punk sound and just gave it teeth. A sound I know both of us would have loved to have seen the band actually follow.
Yes.
Instead of going back to the softer pop punk. But
such a good record. And number 10, again, we did an episode recently on The Boss, and goes to Tom Joad, right? So, we referenced that album in that episode, so check it out. But I personally think it gets lost in the shuffle of his stuff, especially for the casual Springsteen fan. But man, this is great. So it goes to Tom Joad. That also came out in '95. That rounds up my list.
Very nice. My last selection, I was really tempted to go with the title track of Ghost of Tom Joad for this, but
That would've been awesome.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of push my finger into the shoulder for people who don't listen to what we actually say enough. Rancid, Time Bomb. We've said enough about how amazing And Out Come the Wolves is, but it doesn't mean that I can't crown Time Bomb with my favorite song of '95. It keeps you dancing and singing the whole time. It's just cool as fuck. It really is. And it's such a great example of why Tim Armstrong, Lars Fredriksson, why this band is so good. It's just all encompassed in that one song. I mean, the record's fucking flawless, and this is just one of those high notes on a great fucking record.
Yeah, definitely. I always feel it's underappreciated, when the song comes up, in Sirius on like the Lithium channels. And I'm like, even though it's not grunge, but it kind of gets clumped into that time period. And I'm like, this is underappreciated if you stack it up against the popularity of everything else. So it's so good. So good. See, a lot of our lists, Mark, it kind of blends into each other there.
Some blending and some diverging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some blending.
Whatever we're doing here.
Whatever we're doing here. I get only the people on YouTube now.
That's right. And your lemon heads over there. Nice. Chewy lemon heads. I apologize. I didn't say the chewy part.
Yeah, well, they're not paying us, so it's okay.
Yes.
But, I don't want to break any teeth. So.
There you go. All right, Mark. So Foo Fighters self-titled album review. quick back history and backstory and initial reaction. Obviously, after the death of Kurt Cobain in 1994, Dave Grohl went into an obvious depression. He couldn't play music and even questioned if he would continue to play music. Makes sense. Grohl started appearing in random performances, and from that enjoyment, he wanted to do his own musical project. So he booked 6 days in a studio in Seattle where he would record these songs, playing all the instruments. And I remember hearing them on the radio and having no idea at the time, no idea that it was Dave Grohl from Nirvana and this is his new band. I remember hearing the band's name and being like, oh, Foo Fighters. Everyone would kind of say that kind of snarky comment. But Mark, let's talk about your initial reaction about hearing this band back in the day.
Yeah, this was a pivotal time in music discovery for me. As we kind of winked at so far in the episode, a lot of what was coming out of rock and alternative music scenes were either kind of corporate bubblegum rocky shit, punk before we knew that it was pop punk, and metal was taking a weird turn into the industrial scene.
Yes. Oh, so true. So true.
So the Foo Fighters, to put out a record that had some rock momentum to it and a little tongue-in-cheek humor, it was a welcomed addition to me. It felt very fresh compared to what else was in the music scene at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and you really bring an interesting point too, because we are about to make that turn where rock is doing that kind of industrial thing a couple years later that really took a lot of the music by storm there, and was really what was being played. So very, very interesting to note that. So here we go. Does this record still hold up? Here's our track by track review, Mark. So you take us away.
This is a call. That's the name of the first song. This is a call. First, it's kind of a weird. It is kind of weird deep diving into an album after so long and seeing how much of it is just kind of nonsense lyrics. It's kind of sad. That said, like all good Foo Fighters singles, it's got a great chorus that hooks you, and they break out the rock and roll in the back. I'm into it. It's a cool song.
So this is the first song I heard from them. I'm again, unbeknownst to me, that this was Grohl's new band. I dug it, but I thought it was a bunch of nonsense lyrics with the fingernails, the menacing, the Ritalin, but it was a good, loud, rocking song. Re-listening to it, I still think it's a good, proper kickoff to the album. This song, I think it's almost maybe a forgotten single in their catalog, especially if you're seeing them live. And this could be maybe the 10th or 12th song that you think of that you would want to hear. Maybe that's just maybe for me. And that being said, I think listening back to it, I realized I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it. I appreciated it more as far as it being a leadoff single and obviously kicking off the album. So I don't hate it by any means. I was just saying the grand scheme of their songs, I was never the biggest fan of it. But that's how it goes. But a song I am the fan of is "I'll Stick Around." So this is the first song I heard. This is called the first song I heard from them, but this was the first video I saw for them, which is "I'll Stick Around." And I remember saying, that's the guy from Nirvana. The video was directed by a guy named Jerry Casale, who was a member of the band Devo and produced a number of Devo's videos. So that's an interesting tie-in there. And another fun fact for the video is there was supposed to be a girl representing Courtney Love, but the band's management, they vetoed it. So when he's saying, "I don't owe you anything and I'll stick around," I'm pretty sure he's saying that to Love. I think it's one of the best and top tier Foo Fighters songs. To me, it's classic grunge sounding, and I think the song totally holds up. What about you, Mark?
This always felt like the most Nirvana to me. It holds up beautifully and really shows off that Dave can write a badass rock / grunge song. He understood everything from the harmonies to the distortion and how long to play it out. Really great song here. The next track is Big Me.
Big Me.
Big Me, to talk about it. So this song has always felt like kind of a 60s jangling number to me that doesn't really go anywhere musically. It's kind of just one part. Lyrically, it's probably the best work on the record, I think. However, like I said, musically, it never really builds too much and just kind of, for lack of a better term, it just feels like Dave Grohl with his electric guitar.
Yeah.
Just dancing in place in front of a microphone. I would love to have seen this get heavy or fast or do something else musically. It just kind of chooses not to.
Yeah, it's just kind of there, right?
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with this song. At first, I didn't like it, like at all. Like it annoyed me. But then the video that was the parody of the Mentos commercial, and I was like, okay, this is funny. I kind of get what's going on now. So when I think of the song, I think of the video. But let's break that down for a second. Is the video was more memorable than the song to me? What does that say, right? I mean, it never did anything for me, kind of where it felt stagnant, just as you were saying. Again, I don't hate it, but it's nothing short of a pop song in rock's clothing. But the commercial, or not the commercial, the video made it fun. So there you go. Track 4, Alone and Easy Target. Okay, this could be my favorite Foo Fighters song in their catalog. It's nice. Yeah, it's nice melodic with heavy guitars. Knowing Grohl is on drums here, you could just hear his style clearly. Ironically, and supposedly, the tune is about Kurt's dissatisfaction with Dave's drumming, hence the metronome lyric. I find that funny, as Grohl, as a musician, to me seems more technically sound than Kurt was. So, there's many performances that were very vocally subpar, accompanied by sloppy guitar playing from Kurt. But anyway, this chorus is my favorite part, and you could just hear the quick changes in the chords again. I could firmly say right now, this is my favorite on the album.
We'll have to see if that changes as the night goes on. Yeah, I doubt it. But honestly, getting back to what you said, this is probably why Kurt was a better songwriter than Dave was, but Dave is definitely the better musician.
Good way to put it. Good way to put it.
For next week, though.
No, great way to put it, though.
We get a solid return to the grunge overtone here. The chorus here is a little weak for me. I felt like he could have done more with it lyrically. I wish there had been a little bit more overdub or somebody else singing with him on the chorus just to really beef up that sound. But then again, the song is about being alone. So, it's interesting. And we kind of brought up the question about how much of this, to me, we brought up the question, how much of this album is about Kurt Cobain and his death and dealing with that. And how much of it is just what Dave Grohl was working on as all of this happened, as he was known to be a songwriter the whole time anyways. So it's really interesting that there are these songs like Alone and Easy Target that feel Nirvana,
right?
But are just slightly off or just slightly different. But they're clearly not. So it's an interesting thing, and it really, you see it the most on this record.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point too, with the limitations maybe of him just being the sole person to do everything, because it just relies on him, right? So if you would like to hear somebody in the background, sorry, it's just him,
Right. Which is interesting because it's the same thing No Doubt did on their album released the same year, where Gwen Stefani does all of her own backup vocals.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
But it's one of those things for me in that chorus, I would have liked to hear him doubled or have an extra voice back there just to fill the sound of it, because it feels a little bare for that part.
Yeah, I hear you.
So for me, or not for me, for everybody, track number 5 is called Good Grief. This song's about Charlie Brown, right?
Absolutely.
This is Dave giving us a nice up-tempo rock number. We get these gritty palm muted guitars that rock pretty hard, and he backs off enough to give it that earnest little guitar solo. I just wish the screamed lyrics at the end were a bit more audible, as I've always had a hard time understanding what he's saying. I know supposedly the last words are good grief, but there's something yelled before that. The vocal pattern of it isn't good grief, and I can't tell you what it is, and it drives me nuts.
Right.
But otherwise, it's all right. It's just, there's a little too much just yelling straight through it that makes it a little difficult to listen to, and it also kind of pushes the album onto a different track.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually like this song. I like the speed, and it's that version of punk that's not like classic sounding punk, but you could tell that someone in the band admired it, and I like how the drumming just sticks out there. I actually, for some reason, don't remember listening to this one a lot much back in the day, probably because, like most, I was just into the singles, right? It's not overly complicated with its meaning and the content, but I like the position of it on the album. And after the previous, after the previous tune we heard, which I liked, again, Alone and Easy Target. So I dug this song. Track 6 is Floaty. This is the beginning for me of getting a little unengaged in this album. I don't mind the acoustic beginning, nor the change in tempo, but it drags. It's almost like it's 5 songs from that band Fig Dish that we had a review. I mean, I sure do remember listening to this back in the day because I remember I wanted the song to end. Something happening often during this time was the abundance of mid-tempo songs. And like that were very mediocre. So, and that's what the song is to me, along with being super repetitive. So that's my thoughts on Floaty.
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of what Frank just said in this. It's very much the feel of 95. It's got that intro, doesn't really go anywhere. We pick up tempo and volume just long enough to create a mid-tempo snooze fest. I think he managed to capture the sound you would expect from a song called Floaty.
Yeah.
That's all it does. It floats and fades away, and otherwise pretty boring, despite trying to make the end of it a little bit heavy. Like you could tell he was like, oh fuck, we got to fix this at the end.
Yeah.
Otherwise, see Frank's notes. Track 7 is called Weenie Beanie.
Can you say that again, please?
Weenie Beanie. It's the hard rock number of the album.
Yes.
Musically, I like that he's showing off his appreciation for hard rock and metal. But my God, does this song not about anything? And it's impossible to understand. I listened to it while reading the lyrics like 6 times. I would have liked to have seen this get like a decent chorus and hook in the hopes that this song could really say something or do something. Dave's got the lyrical fortitude to create really catchy, fun songs. And I feel like musically he had it, and Weenie Beanie just did nothing.
It's funny too. You say that there was something, I was trying to figure out what was missing from it. And I think you nailed it. The hook was definitely missing from this. Now, the song is named after an extinct fast food chain. So it's the heavy song, and I'm sure, the angriness of the song was good therapy for Grohl at the time. I think I like the heavy and fast transitioning guitars. The screaming with the guitar riff playing in the background reminds me of a little of what's to come in the early 2000s. It doesn't blow you away with regards to being like this amazing piece of music, but I do appreciate the anger and the energy of the song. So this one I didn't mind, but I'm saying this now as Mark said it previously. The hook is what was needed for the song.
Do you think he's angry about Weenie Beanie closing? Is that what the song's about?
Oh, maybe. I wonder when it closed, actually.
I don't know.
I know.
I didn't know it was a restaurant until just now when you told me.
Yeah.
So I can't think of a single time where I've ever wanted to go to a place called Weenie Beanie. But
I just like the way you say Weenie Beanie, so.
Weenie Beanie.
So here we go. It's a chain. It was a chain of fast food restaurants, which is now reduced to one location. One location. Listen what it sells, pal. Half smokes, hot dogs, and pulled pork sandwiches.
Okay, I want to go.
And soft drinks. This is a check out this record episode where we go to Weenie Beanie and check that out, right?
We need to sponsor our Patreon to pay for that.
Yeah, thank you. Oh man, so it's in Arlington, so it looks like it's in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Which is where he's from, so that would make sense. And it even says here, Dave Grohl, frontman of Foo Fighters and former DC area resident, wrote a song called Weenie Beanie. Good to know.
Good to know.
Good to know. Oh, George, that's the next one. And I wonder how much of this album was just Grohl wanting to get whatever he had from pen to paper and then recording, regardless of song quality, because this tune to me is the epitome of a less than mediocre rock song from the mid 90s. It does nothing for me, and there's nothing else I could say about it. Oh, George.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that this is one verse and a chorus that repeats twice, a guitar solo, which actually the guitar solo is not bad.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's all right. Then the first two lines of the chorus again, and that's it. To me, this is where having the rest of the band around you to flesh out a song would have been really helpful.
Yes.
It's an odd thing. It seems like, I remember pulling up the lyrics of this and being like, where are the rest of them? Like, this can't be, what is this? And just going like, oh, okay.
Oh, bad. Good one.
The third single off this album, for no fucking reason,
Had no idea.
is a song called For All the Cows. This is a case of a great song with terrible lyrics. I shouldn't say a great song. Musically, he delivers here, but the lyrics just fall short of what sounds like a fat slur, right? This just sounds like somebody calling somebody else a fat cow. But it's not a fat slur. I don't have a clue what this is supposed to mean.
Yeah.
That the role is a cow. I really, certainly not then when he, he was like the skinniest thing after Nirvana. He's almost a big dude now. Like, I think he weighs as much as I did in high school. Like, I don't know. I just don't understand For All the Cows what it means. Like, it's got to be some reference. Like, is it like South Park where the cows are just like the school mascot, so they just call each other cows? I don't get it. It made no sense to me. I'm sure I was into it when I was a kid because I loved dumb stuff apparently. But now I'm just like, I feel like an idiot for even suggesting that this album was cool with this dumb fucking song on it.
I mean, and how about us? I had no idea knowing that this was even a single. I mean, didn't even know. So it's a song on the first album, right? With this tempo, you could tell it does though set up like kind of their hits and what's to come on their next few albums, tempo wise.
Bad.
Right. Content wise, though, it's weird, right? So I'm assuming it's about what people were saying about Dave at the time. Cow had to mean something else, or he just changed it for whatever reason. I mean, you do have a big chorus, right? And I'm trying to think of different verbiage to describe some of these songs here, but I can't. So again, though, it goes nowhere. So it has the potential, like you said, Mark. It's kind of like, it has this foundation and it could be cool, and then it doesn't, and it just sits here on this album, floating at the track 9 position. I get he's learning his craft with regards to songwriting, and maybe the task of playing everything on the album maybe caused some of the songs to sound like this. I'm not sure, but meh. That's all I could say. Meh.
Yeah.
Track 10 is Ecstatic. Ecstatic.
This is a cover of Static X, right?
Yeah, that's what exactly. Yes. That'd be an interesting cover.
For 6 more years.
Right, yeah. The only song on the album actually that features somebody, and that somebody is Greg Dooley from the Afghan Whigs. Dooley says that he didn't even get out of his chair. He was just handed a guitar, and that was it. This song, I am sad to say, is 4 minutes and 13 seconds too long, though. And that's a long 4 minutes and 13 seconds. It crawls. And it keeps the listener stagnant, and that's not fun at all. I got a low-grade headache actually from listening to this, so it's definitely my least favorite on the record.
You nailed it. This is a long intro to a song. I could have figured out how to actually get into. They just kept playing the intro for 4 minutes and just finally gave up on it. I like the sound they create, but they never bothered to progress it. It doesn't go anywhere. Frank absolutely nailed it. It's 4 minutes of, so what are we doing? I like the way he's singing. Lyrically, it's interesting, but it's a slog to listen to. It's painful. Frank's absolutely right. It just doesn't go anywhere. It's the beginning of a really cool song that's never going to get made because this thing just stretched itself out like silly putty. Track 11 is Watershed. I love that he structured this song around a little punk riff and just powers through it as pissed as he wants to be with what sounds like a legal situation.
I could see that.
I would have loved to see more of this out of the band as they progressed. I really like this sound. I like this style. Easily my favorite track on the back half of this record. But
There you go.
yeah,
And it's an homage to Grohl's more early and more punk days, which I always appreciated his musical roots. And again, like the track earlier on the record, "Good Grief," it's his version of punk, where it's not exactly how we think, but it's mixed with the '90s grunge, and so this is what we get. It's definitely an okay and good track, and I'm more than okay with the length after the last song after that. Yeah. Now we get to the last track, Mark. Ironically, is called Exhausted.
mm-hmm.
So, true to the track name, the song leaves you, again, exhausted. The repetitive and buzzing chord progressions mixed with melancholy vocals. I suppose this is fitting and intentional for the end of the record. That's all I'm going to say about it. What about you?
I love the super fuzzy down tempo intro after Watershed. The way it was placed, I thought that was really good. I just wish it wasn't the rest of the song, because this thing is almost 6 minutes long of just fuzz. We get this big riff, the guitar part 2 minutes in, which is cool. But as soon as the music comes up and builds, as quick as that finally happens after 2 minutes, it's just gone back into this fuzzed down tempo
Yes.
opening. Wash, repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. They finally fade out just into static, and it's just a bummer. The song had a lot more potential than what ended up on the record, and I really feel just kind of takes the end of this record and just kind of like dumps it in the mud. They just gave up.
Yeah, and I think that's a theme now with us talking, especially in the back half of this record, is there was potential. There was potential there.
Yeah.
It's not like these songs were just crap all on all areas.
And again, 6 days.
Yeah,
He did
absolutely.
this whole record himself in 6 days. That's a feat. I'm not.
No.
Is it a good record? Is it an impressive effort? Absolutely.
There you go. Right, exactly. Let's be correct with our verbiage here. Absolutely. By any means, we're not saying that this is a poor record by any stretch of the imagination.
Frank, why don't you dive into the final thoughts?
Yeah. So, we like Foo Fighters, right? I mean, we do. I mean, you had some interesting points to make and note about the band. I mean, this is us sounding old here, but they are one of the few traditional, long-standing rock acts today. I mean, their show we saw again was highly entertaining. I had a fantastic time. Grohl seems like a super cool dude, and he seems super humble by his success. And I think maybe a lot of that nice guy deflect maybe some of the mediocre songs that we might hear from the band, and that presents that they present, and this thrusts them into a higher category along with their longevity. I think I may have perceived them being a little better than they are, which means I guess I romanticize about them a little bit. This album, though, although maybe not having all the members, I think that's where this flaw maybe could be, because again, he doesn't have stuff to bounce things off of with people. If you think about who he brings into the lineup, I mean, he's got the bass player from Sunny Day Real Estate. He had Pat Smear, who played with them in Nirvana and was in the Germs. Down the road, he gets Chris Shiflett from No Use for a Name. So I mean, he's got some people really to bounce some stuff off of. It's definitely, I think that could have been a challenge for him. You get some fun songs, you get some rocking songs, a few, like 2 really, really good songs, and the rest are, on the corner of Ordinary Avenue and So Lane, if you think about it. And, I still like I'll Stick Around and Alone and an Easy Target. But the rest of this album it's a big bowl of mediocrity for me. What about you, man?
Wow. I'd just like to state Frank had a really good time at that Foo Fighters show.
I did.
Because Jimmy Eat World opened for them.
Oh, it was fantastic.
And Against Me. I enjoyed Against Me more than Jimmy Eat World, but you really enjoyed Jimmy Eat World.
I did.
Anyways, the Foo Fighters are an interesting piece of the rock and roll world from this record on. I did that full discography dive with this one, and it's kind of funny how bland so much of it is. They have this huge catalog, and it's completely normal for a record to not connect with a listener. But this is what's wild to me, is that if you take the singles out, there's very few songs that are truly memorable, like what Frank and I would usually refer to as deep tracks.
Right.
There's just not a lot there to hold on to. It's pretty crazy, For All the Cows was the third single on this. So I guess some record executive thought it would have been a better release than Big Me, which was the fourth single. You have to remember that they've put out 40 singles at this
40.
point
Woo.
from 12 albums, one of which hasn't come out yet. It'll come out next year. And one of them was the greatest hits released back in 2009. I think that's when we saw him, Frank.
Yes.
With 16 tracks on it. The only tracks from that, from the self-title was Big Me on their best of, or their greatest hits, excuse me. And then it had 3 previously unreleased tracks on it. They've had a long career and do put on a great show.
Yes.
I think Dave has taken his love for all kinds of rock and roll and directly plugged those influences into the Foo Fighters, as well as his side project, everything from Probot to my favorite Queens of the Stone Age albums, the one him playing drums on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes plugging all that energy into the one band, the one outfit in the Foo Fighters worked, and sometimes not so much. So to answer your question, Frank, does this record hold up? The first 3 tracks, for sure. The rest of it, the nostalgia fades pretty quick because there's a lot of kind of like, wait, what, to get through.
Yeah.
And it can be very disoriented. Like I listened to this album on loop several times, and it just kind of like you get disoriented with it. It's an odd record in that way, top to bottom. I don't know that it's my favorite album of theirs. But I don't see myself rushing back to any other albums any particular time soon. So it's really, does it hold up? Do I stand by my statement that it's their best album? I guess so.
Yeah, right. And that's the best way to leave it. It well said too with everything else. I think that's really the best way to kind of surmise them. And it is an impressive effort by one person to
absolutely.
put that out too. Yeah. So next episode, yeah, absolutely. And Greg doing
I had no idea that he was on there.
Yeah, interesting, right? So here we go, right? The build up to the 49th episode, and of course the 50th. The next week, Mark, next on the docket, we have the legendary Unplugged album by Nirvana. And the question is, my man, if we will still feel that performance is legendary to us once we go back and listen to it. I'm amped to give it a spin without any distraction, of course. It's not like I haven't heard a couple of songs here and there, but really to sit down, no distractions, and listen to it front to back. I'm excited for it. Mark, you excited for this episode?
I am. Look, I'm completely pulling this out of my butt when I say this, but I'm pretty sure this is the best-selling Unplugged album that's ever been released.
Yeah.
The song choices are incredible. And of course, Kurt's banter with the audience is genuine, and really you feel him getting into this performance. It's easily Generation X's greatest cultural addition, short of the internet.
There you go. And Mark and I have talked about this record for a while, putting it on an episode. So I think it's very fitting that we have it here as we are approaching our 50th episode. So we're excited for it, and we hope all of you guys out there like it. So listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for checking us out. Remember, you can check us out in all the places we mentioned earlier. Leave a rating. If you like us, you could always suggest a record to us. Thank you. And of course, be safe out there.
Bye-bye.
Nice.